Bill, as he was known to everyone, the longest-serving Scoutmaster in Troop 71's 95-year history. This event has been many, many years in the making, so I sincerely thank all of you for coming. The story of how we got here tonight started over 3.5 decades ago. Bill Aden took the reins of this troop in 1981, embarking on an outstanding 12-year service record, fueled by his active expansion of our troop roster and outdoor program, unquenchable love for the outdoors, tireless devotion to the Scouts, attention to the finest detail, and steadfast belief in Scouting's ideals.
Even though I didn't know Bill, to me, he really was the epitome of what a Scoutmaster is. And that's why the plaque says he's a Scoutmaster, Scoutmaster. He's really a role model for all of us.
But I'm sure he never realized that he was creating a legacy of leadership that still endures to this very day and would eventually bring us all together for this. Now, I never met Bill, but over the years I came to know Bill in a very unique way. The first time I ever heard of him was back in 2009. My son was in Cub Scouts in Pack 101, the same pack that Bill and his son, Billy, transitioned from almost 30 years before that. And I was preparing the printed program for the Hour of Light ceremony. At the request of then Pack Chairman Ken Musica, I added to the program a message acknowledging the passing of former Troop 71 Scoutmaster William Aden. Still in Cub Scouting, I really didn't know much about the troop, but I remember saying to myself, he must have been a special person for us to be reflecting on his passing. And fast forward to February 2012, my son joined the troop, and ultimately succumbing to the relentless encouragement of various people, in November 2013, I took the helm from my predecessor, George Cox. George, you here tonight? Eventually, I made my way over to that plaque on the wall there to remove George's brass plate to have his end date inscribed, and then start my brass plate. The first name I noticed when I walked over there said William C. Aden Jr., 1981 to 1992. He said, did I just agree to 12-year term? Nobody told me this before. And then I looked at the other names. I see 2 years, 4 years. I said, okay. But getting to know Bill did not end there. Upon taking over, I inherited about 5 boxes full of Troop 71 material. George was very happy about that. That for decades were just passed along from Scoutmaster to Scoutmaster. They sat around in my basement for a long time. Sometimes I creatively used them as furniture. Until one day, out of curiosity, I started digging through the boxes. What I discovered was a remarkable collection of troop history, memorabilia, books, plaques, records, some of which is behind me here tonight. Most of it, though, was Bill Aden's, an impeccable and comprehensive assortment of correspondence both from him and to him. He copied everything. Detailed agendas, equipment lists, handwritten and printed maps, drawing sketches, comments, notes, brochures, newspaper and Boys Life articles, photos, you name it. I don't even think we've even been able to get through all of it. It's now 5 years. For me, this was like finding treasure, some ancient manuscript with revealing the secrets of the universe. And I know that sounds a little dramatic, but keep in mind I was a new Scoutmaster. I had no idea how to run a troop, especially a troop with 60 Scouts. I still don't. But even though Bill had passed on, he guided me along. Through this collection, I came to feel a special kinship to Bill, as if I did know him. Not only did he show me how to effectively and meaningfully manage the nuts and bolts of a troop, I learned by example from someone strongly connected to his community, who deeply cared about his Scouts, and selflessly put immense energy and dedication into his role as Scoutmaster. The impressive content of his leadership was matched only by the care and thought he put into its delivery. That's what I found. For example, did you know that when Manhasset High School back in the late 80s was considering putting community service into their curriculum, they reached out to Bill. Bill wrote a 7-page dissertation on what community service, the aims and the stages of community service, how Scouts do it, and then he described like the last 10 years worth of Eagle projects. Bill's film unpacking list, okay? Now there were no websites back in 1985 when he wrote that. Some of the Scouts, we didn't always have the internet. I just want you to know we survived with that. So he had to write these lists up. If you go to the Philmont website now, you'll see a packing list that looks remarkably like that. He also wrote detailed letters to new senior patrol leaders to set their expectations of what to expect in leadership and offer them advice. Today, there's formal training for that, but he took the time to do this, and he typed everything up. You see these binders, it's all typed. In Scouting, there's a tongue-in-cheek expression we all know that we use used to lure in adult leaders. We say, it's only just 1 hour a week. Well, for Bill, if it was 1 hour a week, at best, that was probably the week he had left to himself. In a nutshell, Bill epitomized the meaning of servant leadership, which is a key philosophy in Scouting, and I will save you the Google search. A servant leader shares authority, puts the needs of others first, and helps people develop and perform as highly as possible. It's therefore not surprising that in 1992, the Theodore Roosevelt Council bestowed on Bill its highest honor, the Silver Beaver Award, something that is rarely awarded to Scoutmasters, and something I gather Bill was very proud of. Now, along this historical journey, I came to realize 3 important things. First, remarkably, we still run the troop much the same way as Bill did, what we do with the convenience of modern technology. Bill was way ahead of that curve and accomplished what he did manually, but his influence endures even today. If someday we find a better way, maybe we'll change it. But right now, it works. Second, I discovered that the best I could do as Scoutmaster was really try to emulate Bill's leadership. There has never been and never will be another Bill Aden. Lastly, after digging through his treasure trove, I saw an opportunity to tell a rich history of our troop. And for that, I turned to our friends at the Troop 71 Foundation. With their generous support, we eventually set up that wonderful history display that occupied the front lobby of the Manhasset Public Library for a year, even though it was only supposed to be there for 2 months. It was very well received by the community, who was sorry to see it go, and another group was slotted to move in. And as an aside, I'm happy to report that we have a permanent home for that display at the County Historical Society, which will go into place this summer. But our history project also became the launching off point for what we now call the Aden Pavilion. As I recall, the concept was the brainchild of Don McCarthy, who had served Troop 71 with Bill for many years. Don had always envisioned a permanent memorial to Bill's legacy. And so, in conjunction with our newsletter and display, the Foundation reached out directly to its many alumni who quickly embraced the idea and generously provided the funding for the pavilion. The next question was where to put it. For that, we turned to the Theodore Roosevelt Council. Eventually, we collectively agreed to install a magnificent pavilion at Onsior Scout Reservation in Livingston Manor on the Flathead campsite where Troop 71 camps during summer camp. Now, coming full circle, the Aden Pavilion was completed about 2 weeks ago, just in time for our stay next week when we will install the beautiful plaque in Bill's memory. Now, overall, I think this is a fitting tribute to Bill. He loved scouting, he loved the outdoors, he loved camping upstate. So what better way to honor his memory than with a shelter for scouts to gather, to enjoy fellowship, fun, and conduct scout business. In short, I'd say we nailed it. In closing, I think the greatest takeaway from this memorial for us as a scout family is that we can forever beam with pride knowing that every future visitor to the Aden Pavilion, looking up at that inscription, will learn that it commemorates the enduring legacy of a remarkable scoutmaster who called Troop 71 his home. Thank you. This project, between the history display and raising money for the Aden project, has had a lot of meaning to me, and I really consider myself privileged to be part of it because it means so much to so many people. He influenced so many people that I feel like now, I've become part of that and can now make sure that his legacy will continue to heighten the scouting experience for everybody in the future. So I'm very honored that I was a part of this whole process.
What I'm just going to do is tell a couple of stories when I was in the troop. When I came to the troop, my first camping trip, and a couple of things, and you'll just kind of see who Bill was from those things. So I came to the troop, it was I think 1985 is when I was on the roster, and came to the meeting, and I was introduced to Mr. Aden, and that was the beginning of Mr. Aden learning basically everything about everybody, all his guys. He knew all of our names, he knew all of our families. He figured out what we were good at, what we weren't good at, and he would put us in a position so we would all do good. He'd be like, okay, Tor, you do this and you do that. He had this ability to figure out what we were good at and get us going. So I came to the meeting, I met Mr. Aden, and the next week or 2 weeks later, I came to the meeting, and I came a little early. And Mr. Aden had a yellow notepad. Always had a yellow notepad. And I come in, and he's sitting at the table up here in the front, and he would write the outline for the meeting. And he'd usually hand this off to the senior patrol leader, and it was everything that we were going to do that day at the meeting. So whether we're going to skill awards or getting ready for a trip or whatever, it was always on the yellow pad. And these would go everywhere. So you'd see me pull this out, we take notes on it, and hand things off to people. And Mr. Aden was he always set the example. I don't think I was ever yelled at by Mr. Aden. The only time I think he ever raised his voice was in a safety issue. It's like, you have to get your attention because you're doing something really dumb, you're going to hurt yourself. So that was another thing. He always kind of led by that example. He never yelled, he never got in your face about things. He was always really calm, and he would just kind of bring you along.
There's so many things, so many little things that Mr. Aden did that made being part of the troop and part of the scouting experience really great. And to specify a couple of the things would be tough. It was kind of an encompassing thing. It was the way he carried himself, the way he talked to people, the way he dealt with you. I never felt, even as a younger scout, that he was ever talking down to me. He was always talking to me like a normal person, like an adult, like a real human being. And it was great. It was always a good experience with Mr. Aden.
There was another thing that Mr. Aden always had, and this came out on the camping trip, was a whistle. He had a whistle kind of like that. And this was his goal thing. So when everybody was, so he didn't yell, so he would just blow the whistle, and that was a signal for everyone to come over, and that way we would start whatever we were doing on the camping trip. And he always had a pad would come back out, and on the pad would be the list of what we're doing for that camping trip. We'd always have a hike, and then there was always some competition, fire building, lashings, orienteering stuff.
Not actual lashings.
If you don't know the knot, tie a lot. Yeah. And then there's one of the things that I always remember. He kept the menu very simple. Now Chris has expanded on the menu. We eat really well now, but the menu was always on camping trips was Campbell's chunky beef stew, hamburgers, hot dogs for dinner, and breakfast was always pancakes with sausage and syrup.
Don't forget dessert.
And tang.
The dessert was always Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, that's right. The munchkins. That's right. The munchkins. Get a thing of munchkins, and that would be dessert. But Bill was also a master at planting seeds. He would come up to you like at a meeting, like, I think you'd be good at doing this. And then he just come up. Then he'd come back and he's like, and you kind of have to think about it a second and be like, maybe. And then he'd just kind of pull you in and put you into that job. Like maybe like a month or two later, you would drop the seed and then he'd leave you alone, and then he'd come back and be like, yeah, you ready? Yeah, you do this. And that continued pretty much as long as Bill was around. I got to visit Bill towards the end I went to down North Carolina, and he was sick, and I went to visit him, and some things didn't change though, because all he wanted to talk about was, where are we going camping? My son hadn't yet gone into Boy Scouts yet. I was still in Cub Scouts with my oldest son. And all he wanted to know is, where are we going camping? What trips are they planning? I was like, I don't know, I'm not sure. And he's like, well, if you need help with any trips, I'll come up, send me the stuff, I'll help you set up the trips. I was like, okay, I'm not in Scouts yet, but okay, I'll keep you on the loop. But then he dropped one last seed on me. He goes, Madian, when you're ready, you'd be a good scoutmaster. I was like, all right, you're ready. I'm going to turn it over to Don McCarthy. Don actually got to spend a lot of time. It was Bill to you, but it was always Mr. Aden to me. So we'll turn it over to Don. He's got some words. And then I actually, I'm gonna, you guys have any stories you guys want to tour? Eric, you guys want to come up later? All right.
Yeah, because I probably won't be all that long. I'm not anywhere near as prepared as I didn't bring the yellow.
You need it?
It's too late.
He was an admirable guy. He used to. Now I'm sure we were talking about it tonight. This kind of thing. He would sit down and bang that out on an electric vacuum. He used to come to the meetings and he used to teach us close order drill. He was a great guy, and I feel much better. I hope I'm a better person for having known him.
I got a quick short story. We were doing something kind of stupid. We were sitting there with the wooden matches, and we had the wooden match in the box. We're going, and we're flicking them into the grass. You know, and then we put it out, put it down. One kind of got away from me. So this fire puffs up, and I'm freaking out. I'm dumping my canteen on it, kind of, and Mr. Aden calmly walks over, Mario. He just digs this bag at this wheel and runs a trench along the top edge of the fire. And he's just like, just relax, it's gonna go on. I'm like, all right. And it was just calm. He didn't scream, he wasn't freaking out. I was freaking out. He was like, oh crap, forest fire. But he was always calm like that. And he was always there, and he always had room. I can't remember how many times I went to his house, or he came over to my house for whatever it was. It was a meeting, something we had to go over, trips that we were doing, all that kind of stuff.
5 words to describe Mr. Aden. Wow. Definitely leader. I would put that up there. Teacher. Later on, he actually became a friend.
I'm going to open this up to Eric. Tori, you got to me. Eric Farina. What number is it?
I don't remember.
Yeah, well, that's right, former Scoutmaster.
I had to follow in the man's shoes.
Eric Farina.
I was 92, 93. I didn't really realize the effect or the influence that man had on my life until I was in my late 30s. And I don't want to make this a story about me, but in Afghanistan in 2008, 2009, I was part of a unit that was kind of thrown together from a bunch of other units, kind of quickly activated, mobilized, and trained, and then sent over to Afghanistan for a security forces mission. So the people who ended up in that unit were not the best. It's like, you know, we need 5 soldiers for a levy. They'll look at the 5 guys to say, you are 8, and they gave us their trash, pretty much. So my fellow non-commissioned officers, my fellow sergeants, were not really true leaders, as I would say. As anybody, whoever graced the doors of Troop 71 would call them leaders even. And on our way out, after our year tour was over, my troops, or 4 or 5 of them, came to me, and they said, you know, Sergeant Farina, we wanted to get you a plaque here at the main base camp to thank you for your leadership on deployment, but we didn't have time. You know, we were ripping out of Afghanistan back to the States too quickly. And, you know, after I looked up at the sky to keep the tears from rolling down my cheek, I realized that it wasn't Sergeant Farina that they were giving that plaque to, it was Bill Aden.
I have him to thank for my ability to speak in front of a group without any of the usual jitters or fear or public speaking phobias that so many people have. He really was a guiding light in leadership and growth and maturity for so many young men in that 12, 13-year time frame that he was here. He will definitely leave a legacy of leadership and growth and maturity many years into the future.
That they were giving that plaque to because he influenced my style of leadership so profoundly. Everything I did, and I didn't realize it until later, everything I did was what Bill Aden would have done. Always put your men first. Always make sure that the mission is accomplished. Always take care of yourself so that you can take care of your men or your scouts or whatever it is, whatever leadership position you're in. He influenced me I was a classroom teacher for 8 years. your skills and your strengths, and he put you into that. I can't tell you how many times I was the one at age 13 greeting the parents with the Courts of Honor, and I'm wondering to myself, why the heck am I doing this? Because he saw that I guess I had a knack for public speaking, and I took that right into the classroom with me in the 1990s. And I like to think that I follow my children in the same style of leadership. I lead my soldiers currently in the National Guard in the same style of leadership. I'm the Veterans Director at Farmingdale State College, and I like to think that I mentor and lead my student veterans in the same style of leadership as Bill Aden. And you know, I got a motto with my veterans that a soldier is never dead until he is truly. The soldier is never truly dead until he is forgotten. And a leader and a man like Bill Aden will never die because we will always remember him. And the scouts that we lead and the people that we lead and the classes that we teach and the children that we raise and mentor will also be an example of Bill Aden's leadership and our leadership and by extension of Bill Aden's leadership. And I wasn't there for that match story, but I totally believe you did that.
Bill Aden, quite simply, was one of the finest men I've ever known. He was, as Marianne said, he was always calm, even when you were about to fall off a cliff, and he was always there to teach you, and it was never punitive. My favorite thing about Bill is, if you didn't know him, he stuttered, and he would grab you in this hand that was more like a vice and put it on your shoulder, and he would say what he needed to say. And as you got to know him, about a quarter to a halfway through the sentence, you knew exactly what he was going to say. You're like, I got it. And he would not let you be like, turn to go, and he'd just bring you right back, and he would just finish his sentence, and he wouldn't let you go. The best thing, I think the best memorial I think Bill could leave behind is something that I think Don touched on, that he was all about Scouts doing things that Scouts do. Bill Aden left a lasting impact on me and many of the other Scouts all the other Scouts that came through Troop 71 during his time.
Please welcome Eagle Scout, father of Troop 71's 64th Eagle Scout, former two-term Scoutmaster of Troop 71, and the Northeast Regional President of Boy Scouts of America, Scott Christensen.
That's too much of a mouthful, I think. Clearly, this is a wonderful evening, an evening of celebration. But I can tell you that from the time that I was involved in the troop, and I came in pretty much at the tail end of Bill Aden's term, the leadership of the troop probably was never stronger. With Jim Brooks as our troop committee chair, Don McCarthy as Bill's right hand as assistant scoutmaster, and with Bill himself, it was just absolutely extraordinary.
One of the things that I found very important about Bill is not only was he a great scoutmaster, but he was also someone who really administered to a flock of scouts, a flock of scouters and their families. He knew them, he knew their strengths, he knew their weaknesses, and he knew how to generate their interest and excitement. And he really did accomplish that.
First of all, in my mind, he was a complete gem. I mean, he was the kind of person that you'd like to be, the kind of person that you'd like to follow, the kind of person that you really want to be like. As far as I was concerned, he was a scoutmaster doing much more than being a scoutmaster. He was like being a minister or a priest or a rabbi. He was basically administering to his flock, and the flock was the scouts.
The thing that I loved about Bill was that he did not allow someone to become Eagle that hadn't really earned it. In other words, they had to really work very hard and make sure that they proved to him and to the Board of Review that they truly were of Eagle caliber. And his classic statement was, you cannot earn Eagle at home. If you're not coming to meetings and going on camping trips, you're not going to become an Eagle. And unfortunately, there were some boys that didn't believe him, and they did not become Eagles. And so he really did enforce that.
Everybody on that wall that received Eagle when he was Scoutmaster absolutely earned it. It was mentioned before that he got the Silver Beaver, and It was mentioned that it's also very rare for a Scoutmaster to get it. That is really true, because most of the Silver Beaver Award is the highest award that a council can give. And they are typically given to board members, to district chairs, to other people, legal board people and whatnot. The Scoutmaster, relatively rare. And part of the reason for that is that a Scoutmaster typically works locally and is not necessarily known by the council. And those who award the Silver Beaver are members of the council and different representatives from the district. So obviously the person that nominated him, I don't know, it's probably you, Don.
No, Thornton.
Thornton is, okay.
He was pushing the car because they said, oh, you can't take the Scout.
Okay. Well, Thornton was the right guy, then, I'd say. But clearly, Bill's record, really qualified him to get it. I know, too, that he was very pleased to get it. A couple of comments on the High Adventure program. Well, let me go back to something that I should say. Eric, it's wonderful to see you. Really, I can't believe it. And I wanted to move this up in my comments. When Bill decided to move to Chapel Hill, he gave us 2 years' notice. He said, my wife and I are going to Chapel Hill in North Carolina in 2 years. Our minds will not change, so you've got time to find a successor. So 6 months went by, 12 months went by, 18 months went by, no successor. He kept reminding us, you've got to find a successor. And frankly, just before he left, we did not have a successor. So in my mind, Eric Farina saved his troop, because he stepped forward to be the Scoutmaster. Thank you for that. I then had the opportunity to be invited to succeed you, and I was kind of loath to do it, because as much as we're talking about how wonderful Bill is, can you imagine trying to follow him? I mean, it's like being a manager of a team that never lost a game. You want to be that manager? I don't think so. And the other thing that was not mentioned so much tonight either, other than the fact that Bill spent so much time on true business, is he was a one-man, with Don and with Jim, he was a one-man band. He did everything. And so when they approached me to be Scoutmaster, I said, I can't do it. He was retired at that point, and I was working. And I said, I just can't do it. And they kept coming back and saying, you're an Eagle Scout, you're the son of an Eagle Scout, you need to do it. And so I finally said to Thorne and to some others, if you'll help me get a band of assistant scoutmasters, I'll do it. And so they helped me do that. We ended up with 8 assistant scoutmasters. We moved forward and obviously did a very good job at my mouth. But he gave us the notice, and we didn't need it, which was unfortunate in a sense. But again, Eric, thank you. You obviously made a big difference. And I think, just as an aside from that point of view, and this is a way of applauding you and the other folks that have come before you, Chris, it shows you, just in that situation, which this troop was founded in 1923, but it goes to show how fragile any volunteer group can be without the kind of leadership. If somebody doesn't step up, the unit's going to go bye-bye, and we might not have had the continuing service that we've had if it wasn't for Eric. A few words on the High Adventure program. You can see a number of the things up here that were in the passive press. And I remember when my son was in Pack 3, and I would look at those and I'd say, why are these people doing this to themselves? And you look at them, they're sweating, they're filthy, they're exhausted. And I kept looking at those things, and I said, why do these people do this? And so when I decided to become Scoutmaster, I decided that probably, since this was probably the highlight of our program and the best foot forward for the troop, I should experience that kind of program so I could sell it. Let me quickly tell you that I'm also acrophobic. So going up a high mountain is not exactly my favorite thing. So first of all, I found out that there was a training program for this High Adventure. And it was a 6-week running program. You started by the first week running 1.5 miles, and you finished week 6 running 5 miles a day. I said, I got the problem. I can't probably do 1 mile. So I started 2 weeks early, and I was right. I couldn't even do 1 mile without walking or something. But you know what? I did the 5 miles at the end. I was proud of myself, and thankful to Bill for having had that program, because it helped me and helped all the boys. I will never forget, however, though, and I think I mentioned this to you in that Don. We went to Baxter State Park, and Bill always had us do a tune-up hike on the first day. Well, tune-up hike on your first trip is not exactly a tune-up hike. But we eventually broke through the tree line, which was my fear from my acrophobia. And I was okay. And then we sat down and had lunch. And I was so proud of myself for having made it. And then Bill goes, hey, guess where we're going tomorrow? Over there. That's Mount Katahdin. I went, there? I did not sleep a wink that night, because I wasn't sure I could do it. He led us up there, I followed him, and I was proud, the boys were proud, and we were so happy to be with him.
Bill, it's been such a pleasure to have known you and to work with you on behalf of Scouting and our community. And I just want you to know on behalf of myself and my family and all the people here tonight that we miss you, we love you, and we'll never, ever forget you.